On a Tuesday in late May, our HOA manager made my mother cry. In a quiet Phoenix cul-de-sac where flags and hibiscus brighten the sidewalks, he raised his voice at a 74-year-old woman about a garden hose. That was the start. What followed pushed my family to the edge. Late-night notices, photos taken through our blinds, threats of fines for things that weren't violations. I'm Daniel Foster, a dad, a son, and a nurse practitioner. I never wanted a fight with our association, but I kept notes, took deep breaths, filed a complaint, and the board of our Arizona community acted. If HOA pressure has touched your family, you're not alone. Subscribe for calm, practical guidance, tap the bell, and share this story with a neighbor who needs it. Comment with your city in the USA and your experience. I read them all, and I'll point you to helpful resources below today. I'm Daniel, and my family lives in a community called Saguaro Vista outside Phoenix, Arizona. It's one of those places where you can smell orange blossoms in March, where kids ride scooters at dusk, and where folks take pride in painting their mailboxes the exact shade of desert sand the HOA specifies. My mother, Ruth, moved in with us after my dad passed. She's 74, a retired librarian, a woman who hums Patsy Cline while she deadheads bougainvillea and keeps peppermint candies in stock for the grandkids. She is steady and kind. She is the sort of neighbor who returns misdelivered mail with a handwritten note that says, "I hope your day is peaceful." On that Tuesday in May, she did what she always does. She watered her geraniums and set the hose down, neatly coiled, mind you, beside the porch. The sun was just starting its daily blaze. I was packing school lunches. My daughter, Lily, 10, was trying to braid her hair just like her favorite YouTuber. My son, Jacob, 13, was half asleep over a bowl of Cheerios. And then we all heard a voice bark outside. "Ma'am, that hose needs to be stored out of sight immediately. You've been warned." I stepped onto the porch. Our HOA manager, Brad Cole, stood on the sidewalk, a clipboard in his left hand, a smartphone in his right, camera app open. He wore mirrored sunglasses, the kind that turned the world into two oval battleships. He looked past me, past my mother, and snapped a photo of the hose like he was documenting a crime scene. I raised a hand, gentle. "Good morning, I'm Daniel. This is my mother, Ruth. Brad didn't look up. "Notice will be issued. Watering hours are before 8 a.m. Hose must be out of view. We've had issues with you folks before." We hadn't. Not to my knowledge. I felt my chest tighten the way it does when a patient's blood pressure monitor begins warning. I put my hand on the porch rail and kept my voice soft. "We're happy to follow the rules. Could you point me to the exact section?" I thought, "It's my job to point out violations," he said. "It's your job to fix them. Expect a fine if this continues." My mother, still in her lilac robe, clutched the edge of it like she was trying to fold herself smaller. She whispered, "I can put it away right now." Her voice trembled in a way I'd never heard. Brad turned, took another photo, and walked away, dictating into his phone. "Lot 74, hose visible, violation category D, second notice." Our hibiscus rustled in the breeze. Somewhere a dove called its 3-note lullaby. Inside, the toast popped, and my mother, after 52 years of teaching children how to love books and people, sat down on the porch bench, covered her face, and cried. I always tell my patients this: let's take one deep breath before we talk about pain. So I guided my mom's breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. I handed her a tissue and knelt at her level. "You didn't do anything wrong by watering flowers," I said. "We can figure this out. We'll be kind. We'll be thorough. You have to understand, I'm not a combative person. I grew up in Ohio, played Little League, did Boy Scouts, called my elders sir and ma'am. Now I'm a nurse practitioner. My job is de-escalation, to read people's faces, to notice the small tremors that come before panic. I believe in associations when they're thoughtful. They keep our streets maintained and our roofs uniform enough to keep property values. In from swinging wildly, I've served on a PTA and a church committee that picked the paint color for the fellowship hall. I know decisions about beige can bring out the worst in folks. But what happened that morning crossed the line between enforcement and intimidation, between order and control. After I got the kids to school, I pulled up the CC&Rs, the covenants, conditions and restrictions that govern Saguaro Vista. You know the thick packet everyone promises to read and then promptly stacks next to the takeout menus. I brewed coffee and read them like a textbook, neon sticky notes, highlighter tabs, gentle sighs. And there it was, watering hours allowed before. 8 a.m., yes, but hoses must be neatly coiled and placed unobtrusively. No requirement that they be hidden indoors, no mention of immediate removal during watering. I checked the appendix twice. If we're honest, most of us only know the rules through stories. What a neighbor says happened to a cousin in Scottsdale. In 2003, the actual words matter. I wrote the section number on an index card and slid it into a new folder labeled HOA, Hose Issue. I didn't intend to make a mountain out of a coil of green rubber. But I also didn't intend to let anyone speak to my mother like that again. 2 days later, the first notice arrived. It was in all caps at the top. Notice of violation. Second notice. The date stamp showed the exact time Brad had snapped those photos. It cited a section that didn't exist. The letter threatened fines up to $200 per day if immediate compliance wasn't met. It warned that repeat violations could lead to amenity suspension, as if my mother's geraniums would keep her from using the pool. It made my wife, Maya, clench her jaw hard enough that I could hear it click. We decided to respond in writing. "Dear Mr. Cole," I typed. "Thank you for your diligence in keeping Saguaro Vista beautiful. We appreciate the work of the management company. We would like to clarify our understanding of the policy regarding hoses as found in Section 7.4b. I attached a photo of our neatly coiled hose, highlighted the CC&R index, and closed with, "We look forward to resolving this matter kindly and swiftly." That's my way. Assume good intent until you can't. The next morning, we had another notice. This one was for trash receptacles visible. The photo appeared to be taken at 6:17 a.m. when I'd set the bins on the curb. Our bylaws allow bins curbside after 6 p.m. the night before and require removal by 8 p.m. on collection day. We were within the window. The angle of the image looked like someone had leaned close to the side of our house, aiming past the ocotillo as if searching for an infraction. I felt a flush rise up my neck the way it does when someone stepped into your personal space. Then came a parking violation because Jacob's friend's mom parked in our driveway for 15 minutes at pickup. After that, a unauthorized decoration notice for the small blue ribbon my mom tied to the mail flag for my niece's graduation. A landscape nonconformity because 2 bougainvillea blooms crept beyond the top of the wall. The letters stacked on the hall table like a tilted tower. Each one got bolder. Final notice. Immediate action required. The tone wasn't professional. It was personal. Maya and I had a quiet conversation after the kids were asleep. "We have to get ahead of this," she said. "She runs operations for a small non-profit. She has a paper organizer that could put the Library of Congress to shame. We document, we breathe, we keep the temperature down even if he wants it up." So we started a log. Date, time, what happened, whom we spoke with, the words used. We took photos with timestamps. We copied sections of the CC&Rs. We called it our kindness and evidence folder. Not because we're saints, but because we needed a name that reminded us who we wanted to be. 1 week later, at 8:43 p.m., a light swept across our living room wall. It wasn't a car on the curve. It moved too slowly. I peered through the blinds. There stood Brad across the sidewalk, raising his phone toward our home. He stepped onto the edge of our gravel, angling his camera toward the side yard. My mother, in her slippers, had forgotten the little step stool she used to petunias. It sat by the wall, innocent as a cat. I opened the door, stayed on our threshold. "It's after dark," I said, even steady. "Is there something you need?" Verifying. "Compliance," he said, not looking up. "Please don't take photos toward our windows," I said. "It's unsettling." He lowered his phone, then smiled, but not kindly. "If you don't like the rules here, maybe this isn't the community for you." I felt a prickling in my palms. I have been in emergency rooms when families receive the worst news. I have listened to a veteran describe panic attacks that feel like a freight train. This felt smaller and meaner, but my body didn't know the difference. It only knew a threat when it heard one. I took a breath. "I'm asking you to respect our privacy," I said. "We will follow the rules. We're asking the same of you." He turned, muttered something into his phone, and walked away. The light from his phone flickered over the bougainvillea like a small storm. Inside, my mother wrung her hands. "I don't want to cause trouble," she whispered. "That's how a lot of good people feel when they're being mistreated. Maybe if I behave perfectly, they'll leave me alone." I put a hand on her shoulder. "No one is causing trouble by asking for respect," I said. "We will handle this." The next morning, I walked over to Mrs. Doyle's house. She's 81, a widow from Boston, tough as rawhide but tender-hearted. Her son was visiting, his pickup truck parked carefully within the driveway. She invited me to sit at her kitchen table, where the plastic tablecloth was printed with lemons. I asked gently, "Have you had any issues with management lately?" She closed her eyes for a long second. "He came by last week," she said. "Told me my American flag was faded. I've flown a flag since my husband served in Korea. It's not for decoration, it's for gratitude." Then I talked to Marvin and Ellen across the street, a retired firefighter and his wife, a nurse. They'd been cited for excessive noise. The noise, their grandson laughing in the kiddie pool at noon on a Saturday. Priya and Tom, down the block, had gotten a notice for stroller left in carport. It had been there for 8 minutes, while Priya carried groceries and a squirming toddler inside. The pattern was clear: aggressive enforcement that misread both the rules and the community. I invited a few neighbors to a front porch chat on a Sunday afternoon. We sat 6 feet apart on camp chairs with iced tea glasses, sweating on the pavers. I brought a stack of printed CC&Rs and highlighters because I am who I am. We kept our voices low and our language free of character attacks. We talked about the difference between consistency and hostility. We talked about how it felt to be watched at odd hours. We talked about a manager's job, to shepherd, not to stalk. We also talked about the board, our board members, Linda Ruiz, a retired principal, Robert King, an accountant, and Shelley Nguyen, a pharmacist, are volunteers. They're our neighbors. We realized most of us had been contacting Bordeaux, which went straight to the management company's server. We weren't even sure if our emails reached the actual board or stopped at Brad's desk. That's when Maya said the thing that changed everything. "Let's be precise. Let's write a complaint grounded in facts, addressed directly to the board, and hand-deliver it. No adjectives, no drama, just dates, times, and what the rules say." We built a binder, literally a 3-inch binder from the office supply store, with a cover sheet that read, "Saguaro Vista Complaint, Respectful. Request for oversight and corrective action." Inside were tabs: hose, trash, parking, flag, noise, stroller, night photos, policy clarifications. Each tab had a log: date, time, who, what was said, what the CC&Rs state, our response. Then we included attachments, printed emails, photographs with timestamps, copies of notices with misquoted sections highlighted in yellow. We wrote an opening letter, 2 pages, that began, "Dear board members by name, we value our community and your service. We are writing to share a series of incidents that, taken together, suggest a pattern of overreach and harassment by our manager, Mr. Brad Cole. This letter is not a demand for punishment, but a request for clear boundaries, corrective training, and the protection of residents' privacy and dignity. We were careful. We avoided loaded words like bully or power trip. We used words like pattern, impact, and documentation. We added this sentence because tone matters. We believe in accountable governance and compassionate enforcement. Those two values should never be at odds. Then we made a concise list of what we were requesting, a pause on fines issued by Mr. Cole in the past 60 days pending review, a new policy prohibiting after-dark photography of residences, except in emergencies, direct board email addresses published on the community portal. Requirement that all violation notices include the exact CC&R section cited, a courtesy door hanger policy for first-time minor issues before fines, a resident feedback session via Zoom to rebuild trust. We included a paragraph acknowledging the board's tough role and our commitment to be considerate neighbors. We closed with, "Please let us know if we may present our findings at the next open meeting. We will keep our remarks under 5 minutes and stick to facts." Then we signed it. Daniel and Maya Foster, 74-year-old Ruth Foster by name, and 6 neighbors who volunteered to add their names. We printed 7 copies. Maya is the one who likes paper. I'm the one who likes to breathe. On a Tuesday afternoon, Maya and I drove to Desert Summit Management's office, where the board's mailboxes were located. The receptionist recognized me from a community event. "Drop-offs go in that slot," she said, nodding toward a wooden inbox under a sign that read HOA Correspondence. I paused. "May I ask for stamped copies to confirm delivery?" She hesitated. "I'm not sure we do that." "Then I'll also bring these to board members' homes," I said, a smile to soften the firmness. "We want to be sure they see them." We did. We gently placed a copy on Linda Ruiz's doormat with a post-it that said, "Thank you for your service to our neighborhood." We left a copy at Roberts and Shelley's. We didn't ring, didn't force a moment. We simply ensured the binder wasn't buried in a stack on Brad's desk. In the evening, I sent a respectful email to the board addresses listed in the public records, not the management email, that said, "For your awareness, we've delivered a written complaint with documentation. We are available to answer questions and would welcome a conversation." Then we waited. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. It was Linda Ruiz, board president. "Danielle," she said, voice warm, "I read your letter. I'm so sorry for what your mother experienced. We don't endorse or permit disrespect. I'd like to meet with you, with your family and the neighbors who signed, to hear from you directly. We'll hold an open session next Thursday, then an executive session to discuss personnel matters. Would you be willing to speak for 5 minutes? And keep it focused?" "Yes," I said, the relief catching me off guard. "We'll be there." That Thursday, we sat in the community center. The room smelled like new carpet and faint coffee. There were rows of folding chairs, a podium, a sign-in sheet. On the back wall, a framed photo of the original developer digging ground in 1998, all smiles and shovels and hard hats. Brad stood near the side, arms crossed. He wore the same sunglasses on his head, like a crown of thorns. Linda called the meeting to order, thanked residents for attending, and reminded everyone of the decorum policy. "We will be civil. We will be brief. We will listen." Then she said, "We have received a written complaint that we take very seriously. Mr. Foster, if you'd like to begin." I stood. My hands shook, not with fear, but with adrenaline. I rested my fingers on the podium edge and looked at the neighbors in that room. People I waved to while bringing in groceries, kids I've patched up when knees met pavement, veterans who still stand a little straighter at the anthem. I thought of my mother's tears. I thought of my own responsibility to model calm. "Thank you, board members and neighbors," I said. "I work in healthcare. When something feels wrong, I write it down. I try to speak kindly and candidly. What we've experienced in the last weeks goes beyond enforcement. It felt like harassment, not simply because of the frequency of notices, but because of the tone, the timing, and the disregard for the rules themselves. I'm going to share 3 examples and point to the sections. Then I'll share what we're requesting, which is not punitive, but protective. I spoke of the hose of the notice that cited a non-existent section. I spoke of the trash photo taken at 6:17 a.m. within the allowed window, and of the parking notice for a driveway pickup. Then I spoke of the nighttime photos, of my mother's trembling hands and her whispered, "I don't want to cause trouble." I read the line from our letter, "Dignity matters as much as shrubs." The room was quiet, except for the air conditioning's steady hum. I didn't look at Brad. I looked at Linda, at Robert, at Shelley. I finished by reading the list of requests. We believe these steps would restore trust and protect residents. We love this community. We want to be here. We want to follow the rules and be treated with respect. Linda nodded. Thank you, Mr. Foster. We appreciate your clarity and tone. She paused. Are there others who wish to speak only to facts? Mrs. Doyle stood, small but somehow grand. I've flown a flag since my husband served, she said. I replaced it yesterday, and I did it because I respect the symbol. But I won't be scolded for being proud of my country. Priya spoke about carrying her toddler and groceries. Marvin described the excessive noise notice for a giggling child. Each kept to 2 minutes. Each was specific. No one hurled insults. No one raised their voice. It felt like church testimony, like voicing pain with dignity. Then Linda turned to Brad. Mr. Cole, she said, we will not conduct personnel discussions in public. But if you have a factual correction regarding sections or dates, you may share it in 1 minute. Brad leaned forward, defensiveness like a shadow. The rules are clear, he said. We have too many residents who think they're above them. If you let one hose slide, soon the community looks like a flea market. Linda raised a hand. Thank you, she said, gently but firmly. That's all for now. The board excused themselves to the small side room labeled Board Members Only. The door clicked shut. We poured cups of water from a plastic pitcher and waited. People whispered. Ellen squeezed my hand. Mrs. Doyle stared straight ahead, as if she were remembering a long-ago courtroom. Maya leaned into my shoulder. My mother sat quietly, her hands folded, the tendons delicate but strong. I watched Brad pace near the back, jaw set. I knew enough about how organizations work to understand that even when someone is clearly in the wrong, the process is slow, careful. There are contracts and HR policies. There is fear of liability. There is the human person with their own story. I didn't want a scalp. I wanted a boundary, a change, a correction. After 35 minutes, the board returned. Linda spoke. Thank you for your patience. We have taken the complaint seriously. Here is what we are doing immediately. First, a pause on fines issued in the past 60 days by our management company while we review each one against the CC&Rs. Residents will receive letters by next Friday indicating outcomes. Second, effective immediately, no photography of residences after dusk unless there is an emergency that threatens life or property. We will put that in writing. Third, all violation notices must include the exact CC&R section with a citation link in the portal. Notices lacking that will be void. Fourth, we are scheduling an open forum next month to hear resident input on enforcement tone and policies. Fifth, the board will be conducting an internal review with Desert Summit Management regarding the conduct described. We cannot comment on personnel matters, but we will address them. She looked at my mother. Mrs. Foster, I'm sorry you were frightened in your own home. That is not how we want our community to feel. My mother smiled, small and honest. Thank you. The next week, letters arrived in distinctive cream envelopes instead of the harsh white notice ones. They were signed by Linda herself. Ours read, "Dear Foster Family, upon review of violation notices issued in the past 60 days, the board has voided the following: hose visible, no violation; trash receptacles visible, within time frame; parking, driveway parking permitted for visitor; and decoration, mailbox ribbon allowed. We apologize for the distress these notices caused. We have also adopted the following policies: no after-dusk photos, courtesy door hanger for first-time minor issues, and required section citations. We will be conducting a review with our management company. While we cannot discuss personnel matters, please know we expect respectful communication from all vendors. We appreciate your love for Saguaro Vista. With gratitude, Linda Ruiz, Board President." I read it out loud at the dinner table. Jacob pumped his fist. Lily whispered, "Does this mean I can draw chalk flowers on the sidewalk again?" I said yes, and my mother said, "I'll draw one with you." And then something unexpected happened. A second letter arrived 2 days later. It was from Desert Summit Management's regional director. "Dear residents," it read, "we regret any distress caused by our enforcement practices. Mr. Cole will be on leave while we review protocols. In the interim, Ms. Jamie Porter will serve as community manager. Please expect a thoughtful, courtesy-first approach. We welcome constructive feedback." Brad was out, at least for now. I didn't cheer. I sat in silence for a minute and breathed. It's hard to explain. I felt relief, yes, but also empathy in the smallest way. Somewhere a person's pride had been wounded. Somewhere he might have a spouse, a kid worried. My relief coexisted with a hope that he'd learn from this and be gentler someplace else. Jamie arrived with a clipboard too, but a different posture entirely. She wore running shoes and a sun hat. The first time I saw her, she was holding a bag of dog treats for the perpetually yappy terrier 2 doors down. She knocked on our door at 9 a.m., hands visible, face relaxed. "Hi, I'm Jamie," she said. "I like to start with a hello. This job is about people as much as it is about paint colors." She walked the block with us that first week. She pointed to a couple of spots where the gravel had thinned and asked if we wanted a recommendation for a landscaper. She admired my mother's geraniums. She told the kids she'd been a lifeguard and that she'd see them at the pool. She told Marvin his grandson's laughter made her day. The changes made their way into the community at large. Notices became courtesy reminders and were specific. Your bin was visible at 5:52 p.m., just 12 minutes before the allowed time. No action needed, just a heads up for next time. The portal added board email addresses and a direct message feature that indicated board received when a message got through. The sense of surveillance faded. The sense of belonging grew. The tangible changes mattered, but the deeper shift was in our chests. My mother stopped flinching at dusk. She resumed humming while she watered. She tied a ribbon to the mailbox again, this time a soft yellow for my cousin's new baby. Lily and my mother drew chalk flowers on the driveway, big daisies and sunbursts with smiling faces. Jacob built a ramp for his skateboard, and with courtesy moved it after each use. We organized a small block party. Nothing fancy. Hot dogs on a Weber, a cooler of lemonade, a folding table covered with a checkered cloth. People came with salads and stories. We met the new folks in '68 who had moved from Minnesota to escape winters. We learned that Robert King makes a mean peach cobbler and that Shelley's daughter loves astronomy. We played cornhole in the growing shade. We toasted with plastic cups. To being better neighbors, Mrs. Doyle wore her Red Sox cap and hugged my mother. They listened, she said. That matters. Priya's toddler toddled. Marvin's grandson, the excessive noise, splashed barefoot in a kiddie pool along with Lily's sandals, which is exactly how it should be. Jamie stopped by, waved and said, This is what the rules are supposed to protect." I Want to talk directly to you now, especially if you've ever had the wind knocked out of you by an authority figure who forgot their own humanity. You can be gentle and still enforce a boundary. You can be calm and still be fierce. My work in clinics taught me to document not because I'm looking for a fight, but because when we're under stress, our memory goes fuzzy. Facts are a kindness to everyone involved. These were the steps that helped us. We took one deep breath before every action. It kept the temperature down. We read the rules twice. Not because we wanted to be right, but because clarity diffuses confusion. We kept a log. Date, time, what was said, just the facts. When I was angry, I wrote that down somewhere else. The log stayed clean. We assumed good intent until we couldn't. We wrote kind emails. We thanked where we could. We gathered neighbors, only those who wanted to join. We didn't whisper behind hands. We invited and kept it factual. We made a binder. We kept requests practical. We addressed the board directly, respectfully, by name. It matters. At the meeting, we spoke to behavior, not to character. We let leadership do their job and didn't demand blood. We celebrated the fix without gloating. It sounds so tidy when I list it like that. It wasn't. There were nights when I lay awake, stomach knotted, replaying the garden hose moment. There were days I wanted to write an email with adjectives that would have felt good in the moment and bad in the long run. Maya kept us steady. My mother kept us soft. The neighbors kept us brave. If you're a senior watching this, or someone caring for one, I want you to hear this with your whole heart. Your home should be your sanctuary, not a site of fear. If a manager stands at your door and speaks to you with contempt, that is not okay. You have options. Ask a trusted family member or neighbor to be present during interactions. Record the conversation if your state allows it. Arizona is a one-party consent state, but check yours. Keep interactions brief and request that all communication be in writing. If you get a notice that feels wrong, don't panic. Breathe. Read. The rule. Ask for the exact section. If the letter doesn't list it, note that. If the language is threatening, save it. If you struggle with hearing or memory, keep a notepad by the door. Write down the date and time of any interaction. If you're alone, call a neighbor after. Say, Brad came by at 8:43. He said, I felt... You don't have to be perfect to be worthy of kindness. I tell my patients to place affirmations on sticky notes where they'll see them. My voice matters. I deserve respect. I can ask questions. It's not silly, it's medicine. And for those with kids like us, walk them through the process in age-appropriate ways. We're writing everything down, we're being fair. When someone is unkind, we can ask for help. Let them see adults handle conflict without exploding. It's the surest way to send a new kind of manager into the world. People ask me, what happened to Brad? The truth is, I don't know every detail. He went on leave. Weeks later, the management company sent another letter stating they were making personnel changes. Jamie stayed. The enforcement tone changed. Did he get fired, reassigned, counseled? I don't celebrate anyone losing a job. I do insist we all do our jobs with humanity. I sometimes picture Brad as a teenager with a summer job, counting towels at a resort pool, maybe feeling small around people who didn't look him in the eye. Maybe he learned that control felt safer than connection. Maybe I'm giving him too much benefit, but it helps me stay human to consider the story on the other side. It doesn't excuse harm. It keeps me from becoming what I fought. At the next community meeting, Linda shared the board's new community promise, printed on a one-page sheet. Here at Saguaro Vista, it read, "We promise to enforce rules consistently and compassionately, communicate clearly, citing exact sections, limit inspections to reasonable hours, offer courtesy reminders for first-time minor issues, provide direct access to the board for concerns. Remember that behind every address is a family." People clapped, not a standing ovation. Not a political rally, just grateful palms meeting palms. It sounded like rain in the desert. Linda asked me to join a small resident advisory group, not to be a watchdog, but to be a bridge. I said yes. We meet quarterly. We drink coffee and walk through the community with a different kind of clipboard, one that lists strengths, shade trees, well-maintained sidewalks, friendly porches. We talk about the big things and the small, the mailbox paint chipping, the holiday lights policy, the time the 4th of July parade ends. We still argue sometimes about details, but the tone is different. We start with, how can we keep this place kind? There's an image at the end of all this that I return to when my blood pressure rises about something small, like a lawn sign someone left up 2 days too long. It's this, my mother and Lily, with chalk-stained hands, drawing a giant sunflower that spills from the driveway onto the sidewalk, petals stretching like arms. The air is cooled by a late monsoon breeze. The bougainvillea glows magenta in the slanted sun. A neighbor jogs by, waves. Jamie walks in the distance, chatting with a couple about options for their cracked stucco. The board's new notice about the community forum flutters on the bulletin board by the pool gate. The world feels, for a moment, in right proportion. The rules protect the flower. They don't trample it. Maybe your story is different. Maybe your manager is a delight and your struggle is with a neighbor's drum set. Maybe your board is asleep at the wheel. Maybe you are the manager and you're listening to decide if we're fair. I hope you hear this. We can be both firm and tender. We can believe in order and insist on kindness. We can move from gotcha to here's how to fix it. We can honor seniors who built our neighborhoods and kids who will carry them forward. If you need a template for a complaint letter, borrow this structure. 1 paragraph opening, gratitude and reason for writing. 3 specific examples. Date, time, what was said, what the rule says. 1 short list of requested actions that are reasonable. 1 closing that commits to partnership, not warfare. Keep it under 2 pages. Attach documentation. Deliver it with courtesy. Follow up once. Then, give leadership time to respond. If they don't, escalate to a fair level. Attend a meeting, gather neighbors, seek mediation. If you are in a state with an ombudsman for HOAs, some are, consider contacting them. If at any point you feel unsafe or someone crosses into true harassment or trespass, call the non-emergency line. Your safety matters more than any shrub height. Months later, I ran into Linda at the grocery store. She was in the produce aisle, choosing avocados like a pro. She laughed and said, "I know it sounds corny, Daniel, but your letter made our board better. It reminded us to check the basics. It gave us cover to make changes we'd been wanting. And it reminded us why we do this. We care about people." I thanked her, and I meant it. Volunteers carry so much of community life in this country. Meals at churches, Little League schedules, HOA budgets, PTA fundraisers. If you're one of those folks, thank you. If you're burned out, take a break. If you're new, learn from our story. Handle your clipboard like a stethoscope, not a baton. I still keep the binder. It sits on a shelf next to the cookbooks and the photo albums. Every so often I add a new section. Pool gate latch fixed, holiday decor feedback, traffic calming measures. It's not a weapon. It's our record of caring. Instead of letters with threats, it holds notes of thanks. Jamie sent a thank you for attending after the forum. The board mailed a postcard reminding folks that courtesy begins on the porch, which I loved so much I stuck it on the fridge. The other day, I came home late from clinic. The sky over Phoenix was that melted copper color we get in October. A kid's bike lay on the grass across the street, harmless as a stray shoe. Someone's bin was 4 inches forward of the curb. A stray balloon bobbed on a mailbox from a birthday party. Life, in other words. I walked inside and found my mother at the stove, stirring chili. She looked up, eyes bright, and said, "I watered the geraniums. I put the hose away after, and no one yelled at me." Then she laughed. It was the most ordinary sound in the world, and it felt like triumph. A final word to you. If you take anything from this story, let it be this. Speak softly, carry a notebook. Document, yes, but also wave at your neighbors. Bring the extra cookies. Thank the volunteer who's trying. Ask for what you need, not the punishment you want. When someone crosses a line, name it. When they fix it, acknowledge the effort. And if you ever need to file a complaint because a manager harassed your family, know that you can do it with dignity, and you might just help your whole community breathe easier.